As blue, but that exquisite being with the sort of antlers was just ethereal, just beautiful.
Isn't she? She's so elegant as she lays there on the ground. I mean, and it just, and but when she's in the house, she's upright. She also rides in the back seat of my son's car sometimes, kind of watching over him. But people, if you're going to watch it in full, you better get your popcorn ready because yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Heavenly tea. Hello. I feel like I haven't been on for a while, been busy writing. Hello, New Earth Mamas. Now, I have Lynn Monet. You may have seen her when she came on with Lisa, and she spoke about Bob. Funny name, but he is actually from the Fae folk. Who are the Fae? They are, let's call them an octave above us dimensionally. I've been looking a lot more into the ancient history of humanity. The Fae are like us. It's just they got into the etheric realms faster because of their genetic origins, which are extraterrestrial. A lot of them come originally genetically from Syria, the Sirius, not Syria, the country, from the Sirius constellations, the entire Orion constellations, many, many Syrian people there, Arcturians, Pleiadians, and up to 20 different other ET races who came, and some of that DNA was synthesized into this extraordinary human being, which was a mixture from some of our ape-type people, primates really, somewhere between a something, added the consciousness and the influence, not just DNA. It was a lot about stellar influence. Anyway, and it seeded these different kinds of humans, the very original growing through the earth experience with influence from stellar beings and a little bit of genetic help, to others which were much more just let's create a being that can work on this planet, but it's mostly foreign origin with a little bit of the native primate. And those are the ones that turned into the inner earth beings, many different kinds. Now, Lynn has been talking to a lot of different Fae beings. Now, I've got my experience with Elfie, who I chat to every so often. The last time I had a little conversation with her about reptilians. Lynn has worked with Bob a lot. She's also seeing a lot of other different Fae beings, a lot of other elementals, and we're actually going to talk about that because she's a healer. She does a lot of work healing with not only human beings, not only Fae beings, but also with earth energies as well, places, spaces, to bring back a clarity of purpose, to cleanse the land. And so it's beautiful to be able to hear and talk with her. She's been on a lot of shows talking about Bob the Fairy, and I think some of this information we're going to discuss will be news to enjoy. That's a
Hello, hi,
pleasure.
how are you?
Oh, hello. I love, look, our colours just, it's always perfectly matchy stuff, isn't it? With the way
Yes,
consciousness works. Just love
that's
it.
right. And green is my favorite color. So
And I nearly bought the scarf that's your color, but I had
mhm.
to have this one because of all these. It just But
Many
hello.
things. Hello. I wanted to ask you, out of the pictures that you were sent, did you get the three? Did you get the Dryad and the Fae, the little Fae man during the
I
daytime?
got that incredible sort of deer-like figure with the
That's
antlers.
yeah. Oh, sorry. These are coming out in my book. Now the
How
blue,
near have you got to the book now?
probably about September, so it's a little bit delayed. But I've already released the pictures because the pictures got out.
Yeah.
The Dryad is the queen. She's beautiful, very elegant. When she stands upright, because she walks on her feet, she doesn't walk on all fours. She looks like a walking log. Literally, she's like a log shape, and she actually is one of the taller ones. She comes up with her, the top of her head's like at about 4 feet, but with her antlers, it comes out to about 5 feet. So she's the tallest one I've seen so far.
Do you think she's
But
is she a tree spirit then with that kind of likelihood?
she could be. She comes with the night fae though, and the thing is the night fae she's like the guardian over them when they come. She always comes with them. Um, and the thing is the night fae, of course, they help the sick animals and lost animal things to find their way, during the nighttime. But the thing that I found that was comical is the fact that they had made mention that the reason why they prefer the day And I mean, the night and sleeping during the day is because the trees are quite the talkers.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
yeah, so the trees make so much noise down
What
here.
size have you found that she is? Because that's with this dimensional transition, it's fascinating with the way sound size gets distorted. But what size has she appeared to your son?
The same, the same. She is taller. I've never seen her short. I mean, I've seen some of them that are like a foot and a half tall. You know
Uh,
what I'm saying? Bob was at around 3 feet tall, just under that a little bit.
but he's taller now, isn't he?
He has actually, it's amazing what love can do. And he has actually evolved into an almost human form. I wish that I could do a drawing. I found an actor that actually looks kind of like him. And the funny thing is he's got a haircut now, like our president has, to cover the top of his ears. So I have a friend of mine that's going to try to draw. Here, I'm going to say this is what he looks like now in his face. Okay, ignore the hair, but this is what he exactly, because when I first saw him, I thought he had a pug nose, but he doesn't. It was a very upturned nose. So this is very, very, very similar to what he looks like in his face. This is almost identical to what he looks like in the face, but his hair is a white color, almost a blonde, and it's just like our President Donald Trump has that horrid hairdo, but he has the same haircut with the white hair, but it comes over the top of his ears because his ears are a little bit pointed and his ears are a little bit higher than this man's ears. I mean, his face looks just like this, but with the whitish eyebrows.
Okay.
He's not scruffy faced, and his hair is white, and it's like a Donald Trump hairdo is what he looks like in the face. You see how upturned the nose is?
Yes,
Yeah,
fascinating.
and that's why when I first saw him leaning against the tree there in his pants and his shirt, I started to chuckle because of the hairdo, and he was so embarrassed because he was trying to get used to even being in that form. You know what I'm saying? And he still wasn't comfortable with it. So when he came forward, he was leaning against the tree, kind of high there, kind of thing. And I looked over and I chuckled over the hairdo. He then wouldn't let me see his face clearly, and I only got a flash of what it looked like. And I'm thinking to myself, it looks like he's got a pig stout nose. So then I was watching a show, and this guy flashed because I kept saying, Bob, I really want to know what you look like with a face. And this guy came on, and I'm like, he looks just like that, but with Donald Trump. He's probably about 5'10", I would say. So he's not short, but he's not extremely tall either.
He's slender of build.
He's a slender to medium. He's not skinny.
Right. No.
He's kind of with those pants on with the pleats, it's kind of hard to tell, because those are kind of baggy pants. But he is slender to medium. He's not skinny. He's a good size. Yeah, like slender, not skinny. Yeah. Does that make sense? But it's amazing what love can do. And lately I've been hearing shows of people doing things on the Fae, and I'm still looking for that.
Do you know what I wanted to share with you? I've been just reading Forgotten Genesis, which is, I think, the 6th book of the Radu Cinema books, who has a lot of inner earth experience in Romania. And this is about how we as humans were created, but it's the two lots of groups. One which was a little bit of primate human or not even human, but not ape, that in between, like Australopithecus, a little bit of that DNA with Syrian DNA. And they went on to become what eventually became the Fae, in that they retreated to the etheric plane. So I'm trying to kind of show this sort of historical development of, and now, of course, that this is interesting. I wanted to throw it in with you. Because of your story, you're the only person I know, well, you're probably the only person I know who does actually talk to the Fae, but also this idea of the evolution and the development of him returning to his true form, because it's like this upliftment and the influence of all of the stellar influences shifting and almost bringing us back so that we humans of a certain vibration are able to commune once more with the Fae on that etheric level, and ultimately that we're actually coming back to a hello again, emerging once more, which is, I think, the fascinating thing that we're starting to.
It's happening fast too.
So
this is one of the beings in my yard. Now that one's like under 2 feet tall. It's small, like very, very small.
But a beautiful, again, a very kind of elegant shape.
And I love the colors. A friend of mine enhanced the colors in a picture, but I told them that I appreciated it, but that I did not want to use the enhanced one because I don't want these pictures to be discredited and say that they've been tampered with.
You can tell people this is what I've done to the picture. I often say I put contrast on this so that you can see more clearly, something like that.
You're going to see cats playing in the background. I'm babysitting my grand kitties, my son's cats. So anyway, I mean, have you ever seen anything like that before?
Not like that in terms of that's a figure on the ground. Although I was a little bit surprised when I did a session with a friend in Ireland. I'm helping her to get all her gifts back, and we joked. And I said, "Oh, I'm going for a walk now." She said, "Oh, you'll probably see your friend." So I went to my special hill because it's so easy for her to appear there, and she was, but down on the ground. It's small, and it was almost too silly. It was almost funny. So I mean, more at the moment. I think I'm doing much more telepathic communication. I wanted holes filled in the reptilian influence story, so I had a chat with her lately. I'll talk about anything that is a interesting topic that I want more information. I'll run it by to get kind of information. But in terms of those sort of, I suppose I see that more with my inner eye then, what they look like, rather than, the seeing things. I tend to see it first through the camera, and then I look. So the drawing is the way I bring it forward. Yeah.
There you go. And I'm just learning about some of this stuff. This was not my forte. I was paranormal. There's a white side and a dark side to paranormal. I mean, I was seeing people leave their bodies at the time of death, which was amazing and beautiful. And then I'd be in people's houses dealing with oogie boogies and that were awful. And so that was my thing. And then when my sister passed away and I came upon this house and I inherited this house and I was treating it like a haunted house and it wasn't. So I'm learning from Bob and from the Fae, about these things. And the book that I'm writing, they promised me that they would give me downloads because I'm like, look, I'm clueless. I don't know. I've got pictures of my sister, got these pictures of this thing floating in the air, landing in her yard. She had seen it more than once with her own eyes, but she was scared and she'd run in the house. And this time she ran in the house and got her phone and came back out. So, and that's the picture that you have. But I'm like, not only that, are you sure you want this to get out? Because, people you're going to turn into a genie in the bottle kind of thing. And people are going to want to own one. And they're going to want to have expectations and demands on them. And I told him, I said, look, I don't think that the world is ready for this. It was actually that beautiful, elegant Dryad thing that actually came and said, no, this is the time, because the people with the frequencies elevating, people are going to start seeing us. Regular people are going to start seeing us and they're going to recognize us, but their frequency will be in such a way that they will be ready for us at that time. So, type thing. And those people whose frequencies are not, they still won't see them. Yeah. So they won't be able to do that genie. And you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, I mean, of course, there's that the freak show thing, isn't there? But I also think, apart from anything else, your history working with place, clearing spirits, that's very, very vital story here for you and for everyone else. But that link to a place, like you said to me very clearly originally, Bob and the portal, he is the warden of that portal. And as we start to understand there are certain thinner places, a lot more information is coming through on that because of the secret space program information coming through. So place and strange phenomena are becoming more accepted. So I don't think it'll be so much, I want one of those on my shelf. It's more, I've got to go there if I want to go and experience this. So more of a link to special qualities of space. And that's good because it helps people be a little more environmentally savvy. Yeah.
Well, and it is, and those people that come will be open to seeing type thing. And those people that come that aren't really open to seeing and want to covet, they're not going to see them. They're not going to be able to, to partake in that at all. So I'm just thrilled to get to be a part of it. It's a work in progress for me. I mean, you're so advanced in it because you've been doing it for a long time, but I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And I have never read about it. I usually don't read other people's material. I don't watch other people's shows very often because I don't ever want somebody to come back and say that I was influenced by it, because I've got enough good stuff just by myself. You know what I'm saying? Even with these downloads coming from, I mean, they have kept their word to me about everything. I said to them, I said, look, if you want, because they asked me to write 3 books to create a bridge between the Fae and the humans, which is what I'm doing. I agreed to do it after I argued with them about what we just talked about. And I told them, I said, look, I don't know anything. And they're like, we will give you the downloads. And I said, well, if I do this, this is going to take a lot of my time. How am I going to pay my bills? And they told me that my bills would be taken care of. And let me tell you what, I've retired. My bills are taken care of. No joke. No joke. They have kept their word to me on every single thing that they've said. So, and the thing that bothers me a little bit is that recently I did watch one show. A friend of mine was having a show and they were talking about Fae, but they put them in such a dark light. People are afraid of them and, don't make friends with them and da 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 da. And it's like, they're not, love can change everything. Love can change everything. And granted, there are some tricksters and there are some that'll do nasty things to you. Bob was a little turd. Literally, when we first got with him, he was terrible. But now, and the thing is too, I've talked to my son, he's so endearing to me, that I kind of miss that little 3-foot grumbling, charming little fella that would go around or sit in the back seat of my car with his feet shifting like windshield wipers, and he's sitting there with his grin on his face, just watching everything. You know what I mean?
Give him back the mission. You have to say, I really like the cheekiness. I mean,
yes,
the dark evolution has sort of had its day now. We know that, but I know that then you can get into Presbyterianism with the Fays. We don't want that. We want the wonderful, lively, vital, cheeky, unpredictable joy that they represent. That's essential, isn't it? You'll have to have a conversation with him.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is too, and are we taping right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And the thing about it is too, Amy, is that traditional religion has demonetized them so much that people are afraid of them and they think of them as demons if you speak to people. And the truth of the matter is that they have joy, they have happiness, they grieve loss, they have the ability to love. Demons can't do any of those things. So they can't be demons. Yes, granted, they can still get upset and angry and mad, and they can, just like they have all of the same range of emotions that we have, and plus a few extras, because they know what our future is. They know what our past is just by. I mean, some of the vibration that is shifting. We are all going to have those abilities just by looking at someone.
Reminding us, aren't they?
Right.
That's a lot of that, reminding us of our latent tools that have been truly hidden. That's
exactly
one of the reasons. Also, what I love is the interaction with the natural elements. That's teaching us that we can actually go and talk to a tree or to the wind and say, hey, I really want to see the sun today. Can you do anything about it? That seems to be fairy tale for most people. They don't realize how simple it is. So all of these beautiful bridges, it's so important. I thought it was funny. Let's just loop back for a moment where you said they told you to write 3 books to bridge the knowledge from human to Fae, and that your bills will be taken care of. Now, recently, I just went back and listened to something a couple of months ago, beginning of January, and a chat with Elfie, and she said, oh, yeah, and it'd be good for you to have some money again. It'd be great. Just see that tax money coming back to you. Okay, so that was January. Last week, I just got a check, and I may get another check. Finally, I've been waiting 2 years for this. And I know that there was a little interface going on there,
Yes.
consciousness level. Now, that's
Yeah.
a positive thing because, as you know, the One Eye Club of the horrible sacrifice to the satanic realm in order to get material wealth, that's the entire demonic realm, which is crumbling, thank God, and leaving us. But that's, I suppose, another reason why people are so kind of worried about working with the other beings in our material realm because they know where gold is, they know where silver is, they know where diamonds are lying around. That's their business, the Fae. They are in and with the earth, and we should be able to give ourselves what we need to. So
Right. Absolutely. And what you said resonates with me so very much because I also had been waiting 2 years for a check to come. And there were two things. There were two different things that I was supposed to receive money from. One, I had been waiting 2 years, and the other one, I'm like, it's been months already. And lo and behold, I kid you not, and it was taxes, actually, the second one. And I had gone and I did my taxes. And the guy told me when I did my taxes that they were running behind by a couple of months because of the system. I tell you what, my money was in my account in 3 days. No joke, they made that happen. And then the other thing, like you, I was waiting for 2 years. And all of a sudden, I'm approved and I get this check, and I didn't even have to go through all of the stuff that everybody else had, these steps that you had to go through in order to get to that point. It just shoved me right into the front and I was approved. And people are like, well, did you have to do so and so? No. Did you have to do so and so? No. Well, we did. And I'm like, they can do that. And I'm so grateful. And I know that you are, so grateful. It's still something that I will never take for granted. And I treasure them, and I'm thankful, very, very thankful for them. But they have kept their word. Every single thing that they've said that they were going to do, they have done. They have followed through on. And I stand by them for that. I do.
it is, you're saying this, I'm just going, it's special, it's special, it's special. For us, I'm just thinking, I told you this, I know, last time, that I told my small, almost 4-year-old granddaughter about Elfie. And instantly she went into a very thoughtful state and started drawing. And I've got these pictures. She looks sort of transparently glorious. It's just a different version of her that I hadn't seen. And now her birthday party, she always gets to choose the theme, and it's fairies.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was so moved. It was like turning a switch on in her. And that is phenomenal. There is something big at stake in this realization of humans and our place here. And this little girl is a kind of beacon. She's a very bright girl. It just sort of touches me in such a way that I feel like, your books, when you get them out there. My friend is writing some books about all kinds of different spirit beings that comes to her. She's about to publish, and I'm hoping to get a series published this year too. It's like this sort of blossoming thing. Bring out the information quick, quick, quick. And they really want it quick. So in terms of responsibility that you feel, do you ever kind of think, wow, what am I doing? Or how do you go about your writing and your receiving for it? You just in a quiet place and you just let it come through? Or how are you doing this? Because I think that's a lovely thing to hear.
Well, part of it is since I'm a two-finger typer, I usually use a headset so that I'm talking and dictating, and it's kind of coming in my ear. And so the funny thing is sometimes while I'm doing this, I sit down and I have a no kind of moment, really? No way. And I'm like, okay, and I'm like, so I just keep on going. And they just, there's stuff that they tell me and that they come through with for my book that you can't even make this stuff up. There's just no way that you can make this stuff up. And the thing is there's a part of everybody that deep down that really knows that this is true and that it exists, and they engage with that part of, you know what I'm saying? They're starting to engage with that part that they lost because they were told, oh no, there's no such thing as that, or oh no, there's nothing there that you're seeing. You know, they all of that got lost, but there's still that glimmer of connection that lights up when they come together with even the information on it. I was in a doctor's office, and I was talking to this nurse who had lost her father recently, and she asked, I was kind of telling her about my books and what I do, and I was telling, she told me a story about her father when he was passing that matched what she had seen me talking about on a show. And then she mentioned about the fairies. She said, when I was a little, because I started talking about the fairies and I started showing her my pictures, and her eyes started welling up with tears.
Oh.
Instead of saying, what? And no way, because this lady was actually religious too, in the traditional way. But I started showing her the things, and she just started to well up with tears, but they were happy tears. And I looked at her and I'm like, are you okay? And she says, when I was a little girl, she said, I used to have this dream that I would go into a realm, and I was in a hallway, and there was this area that was almost like an air conditioning intake area. She said, and when I would turn the clips on the door and open them, all of the fairies would be inside, and their faces would be like all there smiling at me, wanting to play. And she said, and I had this dream reoccurring. She said, over and over. I must have had it, like 20 times. She says, while I was little. And then when I got older, it kind of stopped, because things kind of settle down when children start puberty. They kind of quiet a little bit. And then they, once they get out of that. But she said, and so they're real. And I said, yes, they're real. And she just got her tissues out. She was so thrilled. Here's a woman that's almost 50 years old that was just so enchanted and so touched by the fact that here she's looking at pictures of them. And she said, I used to tell my mom all of the time about my dream, and she'd tell me, oh no, there's no such thing. And, it's just your imagination. And or even at one point their grandmother would tell her that they were demons and make her scared of them. So but to see this woman almost 50 years old just melt away in that moment, literally you could see her physical field where she just melted away of all of the stress and the anguish. And in that moment she went into the center part of where she was most childlike and innocent. And she reconnected with that childlike wonder that they have, that is so rare and so beautiful. Whenever they're around, they release that childlike wonder type energy, that curiosity, that, type thing. And she bawled, but it was happy tears. And she hugged me like 4 times. She said, can I hug you? She was just so thrilled. And then I go to leave and she says, can I hug you again? So I went actually back and took her one of my books, and I told her that, she said, I want to know when this other one comes out.
Yeah.
And she was so tickled. And she says, she had a granddaughter also, and that it just absolutely loves fairies. And I said, well, take her for a hike in the forest, and let her tell you what she sees. And she's like, oh, I will. I will. She was just so thrilled. But so
I'm going to tell you about this work I've started to do, Lynn, because I think this fits, and who knows what it'll flitter off in you. So for a while, I think I played with this last year with my lovely man who's in the States, very near to you. And I went back into his childhood, and I asked his soul to give me 3 moments that I would go and have a look at. And one moment was most important. Anyway, it was he'd hurt his knee as a child, and his father was there. Now, in the real world, what happened was X, Y, and Z, which led to a slightly terse, slightly emotionally cool relationship. When we went back, and I was just talking to his soul, then we gave all this beautiful source energy to the situations, literally like light on the matter. And it warmed up the ability of the father to express his emotion. And so the child heard this warmth and advocation of love from his father. And 90 minutes later, it was even 80 minutes later, I got the testimonial that it worked, what I'd done. because
Hmm.
on his show he was talking warmly about his father in this very beautiful, emotional, slightly teary way. So
Hmm.
I played with that recently and I realized you can go into the child of any adult because I'm missing working with children. Okay. You know, I worked with children for 17 years and then 17 years plus my own children, and I'm missing it. But I started to go into these past of the adults. Now, that this thing with the realization that they've had, you know, pressed down, no, of course, fairies aren't real, it's all
Hmm.
imagination, blah, blah, blah. I think that's an opening that you and I could be starting in a lot of adults. And when you regain that that purity, that link to your childhood, you regain your soul and your creativity and your imagination and your true self. And no one can mess you around once you got that back.
Yeah, and your innocence and your sense of wonder.
Yeah,
You know, your sense of wonder. I mean, when you're in you don't have that sense of wonder, like that wide-eyed, wow, you know, everything. And it's beautiful to be able to engage with that. And like you said, that we can help, you know, people a lot with that because there's that peace that's in us and we can connect with that and open it back up, and it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, it brings tears to people's eyes when they experience it again. It's almost like directly from the other side of the heavenly, for lack of a better word. The same essence is on the other side when people pass, that same beautiful, clear, no expectations, no demands, that just encompassing love feeling, along with some fun, sparkly stuff too. You know,
yeah.
just from being human. They're so curious. When they came into the house one time, my son and I were sitting on the couch, and I knew that the fae were come that the night fae were supposed to come that night, but I had kind of forgotten about it, that they were going to pay a visit. My son and I are sitting on the couch, and my son's like, "There are two beings standing right by the door," and I'm like, "Oh, it's the night fae. I was told that they were going to come. We need to leave out some cream with a piece of bread embedded in it outside for them later as an offering." And so the room just filled. There were sentinels, there were undines, there were well, Bob of course was there doing his piano thing across the couch so that I could act, because I asked him, I said, I want to see something about you physically. And so he did his fingers across the back of the couch, and he had four fingers, and they were fat like sausages. You know, I was expecting that, because of my background in paranormal, them to be gnarly and yucky and dirty looking, but they were actually quite clean. And they were like I said, and he had a nail bed just like ours, but the nail, sorry for the cat tail, but the nail was pointed and just coming slightly over the skin. So it wasn't like long nails, and they were very clean. But
Oh,
he had four fingers. He had three main fingers and then the thumb. And the skin that he had at first, when I was looking at it, was the color of his rock. But when I first looked at it, it looked like it was scaly. And I thought, well, why on earth would it look scaly? I'm like, are we being tricked by some, you know, draconian thing or something? And then I realized when I looked at the rock in a picture, it had roots running through it. So it had that appearance of scales, but it wasn't. It was like the roots that were
oh,
running
well, like
through.
almost
Right.
when you're really cold, you can see the capillaries through the skin
Yes,
as well. Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah, but yeah, so I actually got to see, you know, his color and stuff. And let me put this cat down here. Sweetie, you can't be up here
They
right
always
now.
know
I
where the
love you.
action is, don't
I
they?
love you lots. Yes, they feel the love. And you and I are talking about it. And this whole, don't you feel, I mean, I feel like while we're talking, that little area that I'm talking about, even we're experiencing the childlike wonder and the, I mean, don't you feel it? I mean, I feel it.
Well, I
So
can see it in your eyes as well. This is the thing that no human can sell. This is the thing that is priceless. This is
absolutely.
the most precious thing on the planet. And when we get remembrance, even if it's just a flash of that, we can no longer be controlled. And that's the irony. You know, and I know, we can't get this through money. We can't get this through hard work. We can get this through alignment with being our authentic selves. And that is the power we've been longing for a long time.
Absolutely. And when you experience it, you can't unexperience it, and you don't want to. You want more of it.
Yeah.
You just, yeah, it's just, I feel so honored. It's my mustache, cat butt. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I know you want to be loved on, but not right now.
Part of the
Um,
natural workings of the world, yes.
yes, yeah. What was I saying?
You said, I feel so honored.
Yeah, I do. I feel so honored to have been chosen, and in the way that I was chosen, um, yeah, I mean, some really, really bad things happened in order for this all to take place, but the end has now justified the means, and I understand why those bad things had to happen. My sister passed away, you
Yeah.
know, and Bob, my well, I don't call him he's part of my family. Um, he helped her demise because she had taken his rock inadvertently without
Yeah,
knowing that.
that's the question I wanted to ask you because you are telling it to me, but just for everyone's sake, is how you were able to be a trigger from his sort of darker version, the revenge version, the scarcity version into this more higher version basically of himself, a more enlightened. So that's the story you're kind of telling us now, and I think this is really important because it's about when we clear the land, clear the space, and everything frequency changing everywhere is the job of the current time.
That's
So
true. And he also had to be willing to accept it. And he also volunteered because his heart opened and he connected with a light with us, like we're feeling that beautiful essence. He volunteered to do something nice for humans. And he's doing a lot of things, wherever he's at and all over where he's at. But the thing is that originally with that rock, and I mean, that rock is as big as my hand and it's heart shaped. And, and I think that I had mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned on your previous show or not, but I'll just do a quick thing so that anybody that's listening that didn't hear that one. When I was looking for my sister's end of life directives, because she died suddenly without it being expected, she had a crystal collection on the top of her filing cabinet in this room, and with it sat this rock, this heart shaped rock about that big, and it was ugly. And I was throwing papers away, getting rid of stuff that I didn't need, looking for what I did need to just save time because I was going to have to clean it all out anyway. And I grabbed that rock and went to throw it into the trash. When I picked up this rock, the energy that came out of that rock almost burned me. It went up my arm and into my teeth, and I dropped it. It
wow.
was like even though tactily it was not hot, energetically it was on fire. And I dropped it because I felt like I was going to be burnt by it. And of course I couldn't be because it was not really tactily hot. It just was energetically hot. And I'm like, whoa, let's not do that again. So
I'm
I
going
left
to
it.
insert something. I just bought two crystals and I'm holding them in my hands for meditation because I just knew they were perfect. And the temperature in my hands, healing energy for Reiki could be really hot, but it was just zooming up so fast. So we're starting to understand these properties about crystal as well. Okay, back to you.
Yeah. So I I dropped it. And my other sister who had flown in to help me with things, she was actually sleeping in my sister's room that night. And when I overhear her and she's mumbling and she's praying and she's humming hymns. And I mean, this went on for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, what a weird nighttime ritual. She must have insomnia. It must drive her husband crazy if she does that every night.
No, no.
Yeah. So the next morning I said to her, I said, was everything okay? And she said, well, I was sleeping and I opened my eyes and there was this wreath of faces floating over me of my bed. She said, and I was praying and praying for it to go away, and it just wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't go away. Well, the thing about Fae is they Christianity and spiritual things in that sense, in the traditional sense, don't affect them at all. They were here before religion. They were created, way before. I mean, the time that the Earth was evolving and all of that other things. At least Bob was, created when Mother Earth was created. So religion came afterwards. So I said, so I'm like, well, there's some problems with the house. It must be haunted. We're going to do a clearing after you go. Austin and I are going to do it. My son was there, and we use a fire component. We went through the house, caught a few things in there, some negative energy, some of the sickness that was left. It all went in this pan. And then my son and I, after we're finished, we're standing upstairs. I'm standing in the doorway of the hallway bathroom. My son is standing just over from me. I'm standing like this. He's standing like this in the doorway of the master bedroom. And out of this third bedroom where the rock was, we see this little short man come out, walks past me, walks past my son into the master bedroom. And I'm thinking to myself, that thing looks just like the banker on Harry Potter. And my son verbally says, he said, did you just see Hogwarts go by? And I said, yes. And then he comes back out and he passes my son, passes me, goes back into the third bedroom and does that a third time back into the master bedroom. But the third time he left a portal open. And in that portal were the floating faces of the wreath. I misunderstood and I assumed that creepy man was doing mean things to spirits of people and that he was going to rob my sister's spirit. And so I was glad she didn't pass away in the house. And so I assumed that he was gathering them for his entertainment, and it turned out to be totally wrong. He actually was gathering them because they were spirits at the time that they passed. Their energy level was so low that they weren't able to cross over themselves, and he was bundling them together, keeping them with him for protection, to keep them from having anything darker trying to manipulate them or control them. And he was protecting them, and he was so glad to have them all crossed over and to get rid of that responsibility because he had been carrying it around for a very long time.
So how did you do that with the crossing over? Because this completely overlaps with the work I was doing with the children too. So what did you do with those souls? Did you?
Well, the funny part is that before I realized that he wanted them crossed over, that they needed to be energized and helped. At one point, I had contacted two people that were remote viewers, one in Florida, one in South Carolina, and I was in Louisiana. Both of them said the same thing about the house. Actually, one of the remote viewers came to the house later on and saw Bob in person. So, but the thing is what they were saying is that there was a being that lived underneath the house, and you would hear him mulling around underneath the deck of the house, that he would come up through an area kind of like underneath a stairwell, and that there was something in an upstairs bedroom that he was after. I knew immediately what it was. I'm like, it's that rock. Mm-hmm. And when I said that, they're like, yeah, it's that rock. And I'm like, well, what do I do? And they're like, they were even had the heebie-jeebies over it too. So the next day I had my son take the rock outside. We had been told to get the rock outside. There was a shed area in the back of the house that was closed off that nobody would bother. We wanted to put it in a safe place that he had access to it, that nobody would bother. And then as a gesture of friendliness, I can't think of a better word, we took a bell and we hung it so that it was over the rock so that he could ping the bell and make music as an offering to say that we were sorry, for taking the rock. So he was taken back by this. And his did I tell you on the last show what my name was? What he called me at first?
I think you did, but I can't remember.
Is it?
It was rude. It was rude.
It was very rude. Am I allowed to say it?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Okay, he called me, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Yes, that's right. I knew it was rude.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. He loved it. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Everything was fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And bitch.
When they're angry.
Yes. So, and he'd sit there with his face between these areas on the stairwell, and he'd say, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I mean, he was just throwing daggers at me from across the room. When my son went to take the rock outside, he followed my son, and I am getting to how these things got released. And he was flinging vines wrapping around my son's legs. And my son's like, man, something's so itchy in here. Must be mosquitoes. I'm like, no, that little thing is walking behind you. And he's flinging vines at you. And you know when? And I woke up that morning and my hair was all knotted. I had like somebody had tied my hair, like there were little knots everywhere in my hair. And he actually had put an attachment on me that I had to have somebody take off. That was disgusting. But the thing was, is then my son left and he followed because he wanted his rock back. My son had his rock, and I said to the spirits, I said, "Daddy's gone. It's time to go home. Anybody that wants to cross over, come now. I want you to look up as you leave and record." And a whole bunch of them ushered out, more than I expected, but some of them did not. Some of them kind of waited and delayed, or they were worried about it because I hadn't really had a chance to explain anything to them. Like, number one, you are dead. Number two, you're not judged. Your family is waiting for you. Whatever you've done on this earth to keep you here that you feel guilty of, it's not like that on the other side. You judge yourself, you're not judged. So I had to walk around my house talking out loud to the rest of the spirits to get them finally to cross over too, which just simply by getting them ready and then telling them to look up, and that cord engages. Because the thing about these spirits is that they're looking forward or side to side or down. Spirits are never walking around looking up. Never. You don't see them.
You think it was the actual place, almost the portal, that was sort of entrapping them, or it more attracted them? What do you think? Because that's an interesting thing. I wonder whether it was negatively polarized. It was almost like pulling in spirits that just didn't know where they were going.
I am not sure, but I know that he collected them and he had them with him everywhere. He was very protective of them, and they literally would kind of bob, like I said, like balloons, because they were always kind of, that wreath of balloons that my sister saw, and then I saw the same thing. But so I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I do know that, and I'm not sure if he got them all just in the yard, because he could have brought them in from portals from, Ireland, from England. He had a 5-tree portal in the backyard that he would go through to go to the UK.
Now, I'm going to bring some info from this girl I've been working with. She's Lithuanian but lives in Ireland, attracted there because of her intuition telling her to go there. She lives in the house she lives in. Again, same thing. She had dreams about it. She wanted to. Lots of strange synchronicity meant that she could finally live there. She was happy there for a while, but then her husband died, and in the house. He died in the house. And now she and I were doing all this just opening work, and she'd been seeing beings, photographing them in the house and outside in nature. And we found that under the house was a portal. And so various different beings were coming through, and we were talking to them, and why are you here? What do you want? A lot of them are just kind of curious and interested. We got the history of this thing. It didn't seem to be negative or positive. It was, they told the story of how there had been some arguments amongst the humans, and then finally the house had been built over it, and so they had to just do what they did anyway and zoom through the material building. But this idea again of energy portals, people are starting to actually understand it's true.
And I've got some to add to that too. Go ahead.
Good. We've got to work out, what they are and what they're doing. But again, there's a story. This quite young man who died basically in the room where the portal was. So, there is a lot. I love the fact that we can bring these kind of two parallel stories to people, because we are starting to work on all these areas. So what do you think of that? Let's sort of play tennis.
Well, when you mentioned, first of all, too, there was a portal underneath this house as well. And when you were also mentioning about the arguments and it settling in the soil, this house was sitting on sour soil. There were layers and layers and layers of trauma and bloodshed, according to Bob, that were just layers that were in that soil that had never been released, which is why there were also dark things drawn to that house as well. And Bob was trying to protect the grounds. Bob explained too that he was what they call a Rockun, UN. He always corrected me, which is a child of the rocks, and he worked with everything below the ground, the soil, the crystals, the rocks, this, anything like that, the root, type thing. He didn't do the roots so much, but all of the rest of it. And his father was a Rockun, but his mother was of all of the things on the surface that grow, the grass, the trees, and everything. And he said that normally the two don't mix, but his parents fell in love, and he had like 7 brothers and I don't know how many sisters. So he is technically biracial in that field, which is very unusual. So he's a special entity in himself. And the thing is his brothers looked more like one, and his sisters looked more like another one or one. So they were more accepted in, and he couldn't find a partner because of the blend, if that makes sense. So instead, he was given as a partner rabbits. And he spoke of the 2 rabbits that he had. He had first one brown rabbit, that he had that passed away. And as you know, rabbits don't live very long. But then the second rabbit that he had was a white rabbit, and he loved that rabbit. It was his companion, his buddy. They'd do things, and everywhere he went, the rabbit was there, type thing. And he just loved this rabbit. And when that rabbit passed away, Bob said that it was so hard for him that he wanted to go at that time too. That's how much grief he had, with his rabbit. So the white rabbit thing is very, very special at that house
Follow the
too.
white rabbit as well. I mean, the symbology of this is interesting.
Yes.
Why he would be a portal warden, because that's above and below and through. So yeah, okay, I'm just loving
Yeah.
all these themes.
Yeah. Another funny thing too, and I'm doing bits and pieces here, because there was something else that you wanted me to stay
Yeah,
on
well, it
track
was
with
his
about.
transition, and you are telling the story of
Right.
how he went from this sort of angry, embittered into the much freer, more noble version of himself.
Exactly. So what we did is we were only there for like 5 days, and we wanted him to stay out of the house because he was still being a stinker, and he was still saying fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Even though we gave him his rock back and his bell, he still didn't trust us. He was still grumbling and angry. So I set out some things on the counter, which he could see even through the wall, of, some crystals, some silver flakes, some gold flakes, some tobacco, some of this fancy liqueur type thing on there. And I'm like, for every day that you follow out what we're doing and you stay outside so that we can work and get done here, so that we can leave and you can have the property back, you will be rewarded with one of these each evening. And we were consistent, and we did it. And one day he didn't follow that boundary and those rules. He couldn't resist. He wanted to come in to see what we were doing, and he didn't get rewarded that day. So, he kind of grumbled and went back out. So he was trying to be really, really good. And the funny thing is that we were supposed to leave on a Monday. And I explained it to him because there's no time. We're on linear time, but time is timeless in their realm. So I was trying to explain to him that we will be leaving after the 5th dark type thing, because he could understand the daylight coming and the nighttime coming. So after the 5th nighttime, we will then be leaving at that daylight after the 5th nighttime. So, but it just so happened that there was a sink leaking upstairs, and we couldn't leave a sink leaking upstairs and be gone for months. It would have torn out the ceiling in the downstairs. So we had to finally get somebody to fix it. They couldn't come until that evening. So my son and I decided to go and get some good Cajun food, and we came back, and we can hear him grumbling. He sounded like the Tasmanian devil coming up from Bugs Bunny coming up from the back of the room, bitch, fucking. And I'm like, you know what? We forgot to tell him. He thought we were leaving. We forgot to tell him that we had to stay.
You broke your promise. Yeah.
That's right. That we had to stay one more day. So I apologized. I told him that we did have to stay one more day, that there would be an extra measure of a treat. And we brought back beignets. So we gave him 3 of the beignets outside, and we're like, we'll give you the rest of the whole box. There were a dozen of them. My son and I each ate one. We'll give you the remaining 10 when we leave tomorrow. Plus, we will give you liquor, and we will leave you with tobacco, and we will leave you with some of these other crystals that we haven't given you yet. So that night, my son is loading my sister's truck with some heavy items, and all of a sudden, I hear all of this profanity outside, and I went to the door. I thought my son had injured himself, and I opened the door. My son's face is like right there in my face. I'm like, "What happened?" And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Well, why were you yelling out obscenities?" And he said, "Well, that wasn't me. That was not me." I said, "Well, did you hear it?" And he said, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So the next morning, my son has his car running to charge up his battery. He's got the truck running because he's trying to plug in the phone charger so that I can use my phone for navigation home. And all of a sudden, I'm standing out on the front porch and I hear, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." And so I walk over to the truck and I said to my son, Austin, I said, "Is everything okay?" He says, "Yeah." And I said, "Why are you cussing?" And he says, "That's not me." And then we both heard it. "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." In the shed doorway, Bob was standing and he thought that we were going to leave and not keep our word. And he really wanted those beignets. He loves Oreos too. So we made sure that, after the cars were started and running, that we went into the house, that we got the box and all of the things that we promised. And we took them into his shed and he hid. So we took him over to the area where we had the rock sitting and the bell and sat them there for him to take. And all of a sudden, I feel on the side of my leg, on the seam of my pants, something grasp the side of my pants to let me know that he was standing right next to me. And I said, "Bob's right here. He's standing next to me." And that was his calling card, so to speak. Every time he would come in to visit and I wasn't aware of it, I'd feel like a little child's hand grasping, even if I had shorts on. It was as if I had pants on that he was grasping. I could feel that grasp up against my skin. So anyway, we told him that we were leaving, that he could have free reign of the yard and the house. At that point that that we would be coming back, but not for a while. So for him to enjoy, and that when we come back, that we were going to bring him some presents. So we had to keep the consistency. My son ended up living there and would take him out something every night, to show the appreciation, even though now him coming in the house was not a problem because he wasn't exuding this negativity like on the, I don't know if you have in the UK, the Peanuts with Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
They had that one kid named Pigpen that would whirl the, type thing. And that's how Bob was with negativity. He was so mad. He was so angry. He was just pissed, and he even admitted that he caused my sister's demise because people are like, "Well, how can you care about this being that killed your sister?" Well, first of all, he was very tearful when he came forward on that one. And he said, "Because she took my rock." His rock was his precious. It was like his child. And I'm sorry, but if somebody were to kidnap my child, I'd want him dead too. You know what I'm saying? And my sister, I saw her leave her body. She was happy. She'd been suffering with sickness for a long, long time. This life had not been easy for her. She was in a better place. I knew where she was. And my sister, when she came back through after she passed away, the first thing that she said to me is, "Did you see him? Did you see him? Did you see him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks a lot. What do I do with this thing, type thing." Because again, I was learning. So it's been a work in progress. But since then, we've had so many things. And the most
It's a co-creation then between the two of them, his negativity and her need to let go of hers. He sounds so much like a traumatized child to me.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he was even telling us stories about some of the farmers that he was assisting with the lands and how one of them in particular they all that they wanted was to have their share, of the hard work. So they would like ask him, "Do you want the vegetation that grows above the ground or below the ground?" And he'd pick, "Well, above the ground." So they'd plant potatoes. And then the next time, "Do you want the vegetation above the ground or the below the ground?" So he'd say, "Well, below the ground." And then they would grow tomatoes. So they would constantly do this trickery kind of thing and thought that it was funny. And not only that, even the Native Americans, I'm sorry, they were not very nice to them either. They used to feed the puck wedgies to the giants so that the giants wouldn't eat their tribes, but they'd throw those puck wedgies up to the giants to eat and sacrifice them all of the time. And,
But I
you
mean,
know,
all of us have been infiltrated by very negative influence for at least the last 5,000 years. So, yeah, it's been in the air.
it is.
We're
So
maturing a little now.
we are, and we're awakening.
So,
We
what
are
do you think
awakening.
happened with Bob then? So he was able
His
to sort of trust and therefore allow out some of this bitterness?
he because of the consistency. And the last time that I went there, he was so happy to see me that he literally ran up while I'm unloading my truck and just like a little tiny kid threw his arms around my leg and just hugged it because he was happy that we were there. His heart had melted. The anger had been released and he had learned to love us back. Because it was kind of like, one of those fairy tales that, that the Beauty and the Beast, kind of thing. And the love makes him evolve into something very, very beautiful. It's
But
very
this
much
is the
like that.
story. This is the story of the human being. I have a beautiful daughter who I just adore. And but because of the trauma she experienced as a child during the divorce, she was stolen from me. She does a sort of come, go to me because
Mhm.
she doesn't trust my love because the world around tells all sorts of other stories about me. And you just know this is the case. Any human being, it's the child who has been trampled upon in their trust. When you solve that key and give them back, then they are allowed to feel the love again. I mean, this is so important. It's a story
It
about
is.
a being, but he's dramatizing it large in our faces in an unusual way for us to
Mhm.
understand the key to ourselves. Yeah.
Right. That love conquers all. And so as I brought other people to the house for him to meet, he realized that we're friendly. And something very funny is he actually went through, he was gone for like 2 weeks. He went through the portal in the back to Ireland. And he was literally over in Ireland knocking on all of his relatives' doors saying, there are these humans that like us. They're not afraid of us. So if ever you go that way, be sure to stop it and say hello. And my son said that shortly after that, that these images of these blue, almost like Smurfs, but not that cartoonish. They looked like little men with more of a grayish colored skin, but they had like icicles in their beard. And they popped in and they said, "Hi, Bob told us that you wouldn't be afraid of us if we popped in, and he sent us to come in and say hello." And they explained to my son that they were the fae that were responsible for the runoff, the ice melting runoff water off of the mountains, that they directed it. So, and then they just disappeared and they were gone. They just popped in to say hi. Bob told us that you wouldn't be afraid of us and you'd see us and that we could talk to you. And they did, and they left. And then, just having, then he trusted. I mean, my son was out, even when he was still being angry with us. My son was laying underneath this car trying to get he was changing his oil, trying to get that oil thing off the oil pan. And he said that he saw the spirit of a bear walking past from underneath this car. I've got another kitty here just moving things around. I'm sorry. And then all of a sudden he saw Bob's little feet trailing behind the bear. And he said that when he came out from underneath the car, the yard was filled with fireflies and beautiful spirits of animals. There were deer and foxes and bears and all kinds of forest animals were deceased. They were the spirits of them everywhere. And the thing is, too, is Bob would continue to make portals where the yard would almost light up with energy during the nighttime that would look like a quilt, but not with squares, with triangles. And he would connect them with the crystals that we would give him and the rocks in the yard. That's why sometimes rocks, you don't want to move them. I'm sorry, this cat.
I know,
Uh,
I like it because it makes everything so dynamic. There are no accidents to anything.
they're
Um,
not, and
this
because
thing,
they were,
it feels like the dimensions, he's connecting the dimensions together.
he, he was creating these portals. And the thing is that it was a gold light from crystal to crystal, then a blue light, then a silver light coming back to the one with the gold. And you know, they were portals, and he's got the whole yard decorated in that. When we went back, he was guiding me to know where to place the crystals, because now I had gone. Oh, and another thing too, I have to share with you. Part of the reason why that rock was so special to him is, for one thing, it's an original piece. Please take the cat off the table. My daughter just got home. It was an original piece of Mother Earth when she was evolving and creating. He said that there were 5 pieces total. That rock was one of those pieces, and that he since has gone all over the world and gathered all of the other 5, and they are on that property. I only know where one of them is, but he has the other 4 on there as well. And so, but the thing was, is he would talk about his rock and how his rock would tell him stories of ancient times and Bob loves stories. He loves to hear stories. So when I came back, I had gone to a crystal show, and I got turquoise from Mexico, and I got something else from Madagascar, and something else from Brazil. And I got the rough ones, not the polished ones, because he wants the ones that are not shined up. And to bring those to him as surprises. And I got volcano dirt out of a volcano that had not been touched by humans. It was dug, and I was like, me and one other person were the only ones to touch it. And I brought him that dirt, and those were treasures to him. And I said to him, I trip even after that, I went to the beach and I brought back shells, and I said, I know these aren't rocks, but these are shells that may also tell you stories, because they're the gems of the ocean. And he appreciated it so much, and that's where he felt the love coming for me. I didn't have to bring him gifts. I wanted to make him happy. Not that I was like worshiping him or anything, but I wanted to share with him something that he would like. And that's when he started taking on more of a human form, where I remember when I left the volcano dirt out underneath the tree, where his rock, because we asked him one of the times, listen, where do you want your rock? Where would you like us to put it? Are you happy with it here in this shed on this stand, or would you prefer it somewhere else? And he preferred it somewhere else. And lo and behold, he placed it under a tree. We set it out. We come back, we find it underneath this oak tree, that it's been positioned, it's been moved. He moved it himself, and it's nestled there. And I'm like, are you sure that that's where you want it? Because people can see that. I can see that. And he said, no. He said, they won't see it. I'll camouflage it. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to camouflage it a lot, because there's no vines, no grass, nothing around, and you've got it sitting right there out in the open. I said, I hope nobody mows over it. And he says, no, it's okay. I will camouflage it. And do you know that people walk right past that rock and they don't even see it? Yeah, literally, they don't. He camouflages it
But
with
most
people.
things are hidden in plain
Yep.
sight.
Yep, and hidden in plain sight. And so that's how it all evolved. And then he started to evolve into more of a human form. He actually wears gray pleated pants and like a white Oxford long sleeve shirt. And the evolving, and his light is so beautiful. And also the night fae are now elevating as well. They're not
This
that
is
blue.
what I'm interested in too. His other, you said he doesn't have a partner, he had the white rabbit, but what is his relationship like to the others? Is there ever any, does he bring them into the story, or do you get that sense that he's alone?
Well, he has family all over, but he had been alone, and now he's traveling back and forth. But he would bring in all of those things because they were his friends. He was there the night that the night fae and the sentinels and all of those were there in the room. And the thing is too, is he's also been helping heal them and elevate their frequency. So the night fae that used to be blue, they're more now of a shimmering golden color, with a little bit of blue, but they've got a lot more gold in them than they did before, and they're elevating with the consciousness that we're elevating with also. So yeah, they're very, very misunderstood, and and again, a lot of that has to do with people's goosebumpy feeling of seeing things that aren't solid. They freak out. They assume that it's something creepy and they run out of the room. Even I have to share this too. Even when people are actively passing away and they're talking about loved ones that they're seeing in the room that I'm seeing too, that are coming in to collect them, the family gets freaked out. Even if they're talking about Uncle Bob, Uncle Joe, don't want to mix up Bob, Uncle Joe, that the family knows who it is. Yeah, Uncle Bob, Uncle Joe passed away.
Well, I suppose that was the church really drummed it in, didn't it? You will go to hell, it's demonic or whatever.
Yes.
That sort of programming is very fixed in some people, but it is loosening, as I'm sure you're noticing. It is.
It is. And, the thing is, too, is, of course, originally, Lucifer, when he was on the other side, he was a beautiful, intelligent angel of music. He was God's favorite angel who decided to take things in his own hands and got kicked out. Well, like the Hatfields and the McCoys, they just aimlessly followed. They didn't understand the repercussions and the consequences when they followed. And I think that perhaps that's where like the demonizing came in on that part, because Lucifer got kicked out. So now the Fae were following. That was something bad. But now they're coming away from that because they didn't realize, fully what they were doing, and they're elevating, their being consciousness, as well. But there was something else I was going to tell you too.
Yeah, because it came in between, didn't it? The thing you were going to say. Let's see what it might be.
And he talks about Jesus.
It was about, though, before we get there, it was something to do with the stones and the crystals and the portals and this overlap. Something around there. You were going to tell me something.
Yeah. So he creates these portals, and so that now all of these beings can come through onto the property through the portals. The Night Fae actually built a mound in the backyard. They build mounds and I kept wondering what these mounds were. And people were like, "Oh, that's a."
What kind of size are we talking about?
Some of them are just under 2 feet tall. I mean, they're big, and they're mounds of mud. And some people were saying, "Well, those are crawfish mounds." Like, crawfish mounds? Why are there? Louisiana is weird. Yeah, I could have crawfish in my yard, but there's no water, type thing. But they built a similar mound like that in the backyard. And when they came to visit, I was told that they were going to stay there through it was the summer solstice. They were going to stay for about 3 days. And after they left, there was this mound in the backyard made of the dirt that they would come in and go out of. It was their area to sleep. So, I mean, so I there aren't as many crawfish mounds or whatever mounds in the yard anymore. So
termite mounds. Is it crawfish? I'm not aware of that. I'll have to look it up. But
no, they said the people that the Cajun people that live there, because I've never seen them before. I mean, termite mounds are smaller. These were pretty good sized around. You know what I mean? And they were kind of narrowed up, and they went up. They could have been a couple of different things, but the people told me that they were crawfish mounds. But this particular mound in the backyard was not. When you look down at it, it was actually hollow and kind of cleaned out. It wasn't like the other ones are. It was.
I just get the sense from everything you're saying that this is an area, just because of a vision I had that I put into a drawing and things I read in the Radu Cinema books of these portal areas, that there are some places where this natural earth energy, the etheric layer, is bleeding through stronger. When you said about your son seeing the bear, and then when he crawled out from under the truck and there were these sort of surrounded by beings, I just get this sense that it's just the etheric overlapping in that region.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're going to find more and more regions like that. We need to start to understand what it is and to accept it and to actually revel in it, and that's how you can communicate with your beloved ones who are still in those transition zones. If they haven't incarnated again, they're probably somewhere in that etheric level, as well as the animals and so on. So it's like he's sort of giving you all these sweeties to kind of follow and unpack. Are you finding that as you write the books, you're kind of getting, as you said, sort of big chunks, like, what? Yes, okay, all right, that makes sense. Is that what's kind of happening?
Well, and some of it's, like I said, it's an oh shit moment. It's like, no shit, really? It's like, well, who knew? You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, that actually makes sense. And it's like, really, I mean, there's life in the ocean that the humans don't even know about. They don't even acknowledge way in the deep parts of the ocean that are all affiliated with this too. I mean, there are just so many things. And um I just, I feel so fortunate. I do. I feel so grateful to be able to be a part of this. And I would literally give my life for that rock. I would. If somebody came to try to take that rock, I would die for it. I'd take a bullet for it. I would. That's how special it is to me to protect and make sure that that realm starts to learn love from us. You know what I'm saying? Unconditional love from us that they also need to engage with and have also to be able to grow and trust. It's a two-way street. You can't just take, which is what happened before. The humans were just taking and taking and taking and having that expectation and demand, like the farmers and the things like that. And
But you're a signifier of where we are in our best place, which is where we have to start knitting together, isn't it? So it's like, the white hats talk about it's got to get to an 80% or it's going to be 85%, and then we can reveal this next piece of information. It's similar to that, isn't it? You've got to demonstrate this compassion and love,
absolutely.
and then they can reciprocate and realize, oh, okay, we can be our best version too. So
Mm-hmm.
gate openers, way showers. Lynn, is there anything you'd like more to talk about?
You
That
know, there's
Dryad is still in my mind so much, but I think you're going to have a lovely
she
time.
is so elegant and beautiful, and just her energy is a little bit heavier than the rest because she's got that guardian protective energy just a little bit, especially coming in at first. But she's so elegant and beautiful, type thing. But yeah, no, this has been great, and the time has flown by. You're probably going to be able to do like 4 sections on this one if you want to. But people, if you're going to watch it in full, you better get your popcorn ready because yeah, it's going to be a good one. Um, Thank you so very much for having me and inviting me on your show. I'll be happy to come on anytime you want because the new stuff is happening all the time.
Mm.
And um, I've got a couple of things that are coming up for me. I actually am going to be on Good Morning Augusta on TV, not this Saturday, but next Saturday at 10:45 USA Eastern Standard Time. If anybody wants to watch that, I'm also have a show where as a guest with George Norrie on Beyond Belief on Gaia that is
Oh,
currently
that'll be good.
yeah, well, that is currently streaming. It's streaming live now, and I'm talking about the fairies as well. And I'm working on these books, getting ready to get them out. In addition to those 3 books, I would like to do some children's books to
Yeah.
kind of orient them and bring them in as well. Yeah, I
We've
mean,
got
this is
two of your books, so we can already, because I listed them last time, haven't
okay.
they? That people can
I
get.
yeah, I currently there some are out on Amazon, some are on my website, some are on both. Amazon makes enough money, so and
So, Lynn, let me
yes.
just tell you that I want to, in the next year, set up a publishing house because I know people like us who just don't have access to real publication. And I think if we brought, 20 amazing books together, it could be quite incredible. Just as I used to run a gallery, and once you bring
Mhm.
people together, there is a slight more mass of attention. So that's something I'd like you to kind of consider in the future too.
Oh, I will. Currently, I'm self-publishing, but I would. Right now, I'm getting so busy. I need somebody else to take some of it off of my hands, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And I'm actually looking to hire an assistant part-time to handle emails and appointments and things like that because I've got so much going on and coming up. But no, definitely, I'd be interested in that. Let me know, type
And I
thing.
really think that the children version of this is so important because, as we talked about, the way my little Ellie lit up, we know we've got that spark within us that remembers. And you can even influence the adult through the child. Well, I wanted to tell you one story before we go. There was a beautiful woman who just started teaching recorder, amazing. I think it's called recorder two in the States, isn't it? The like an upright flute. She
Mhm,
plays
mhm. Yeah,
incredibly.
yes.
so gifted, lovely woman. And this is the school I used to teach at for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Loved her. I just had a good, warm feeling. We had a few nice chats. And then she told me about her daughter who writes letters to the fairies. Her daughter completely believes in the fairies.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
child is 8, 9. She just turned 9 when we first were talking. And I loved it so much. And this became the bridge between this woman's soul and mine. And we just knew we loved each other. It was like we could
Mm-hmm.
move to another level of just that pure, gorgeous frequency. And then I was encouraging her various things she could do. And I haven't yet spoken to her about my Fae experience because I hadn't been working at that school.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to. But again, it was this bridge to the authentic, pure, beautiful self through the fairy realm, supposedly just the imagination. But she knew, and I knew, and we both knew that each other knew that they were real.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that was so, it's the magic of being human that, the Schwabs of this world with the World Economic Forum and the New World Order want to kill and completely suppress. And the beauty is that here we are with sparkly eyes
Mm-hmm.
talking about dimensional, the true magic that we're starting to discover. So thank you so
Yes.
much for coming
Oh, thank you.
and
Thank you.
sharing and talking. And I'd love to do more. And I think maybe we could even talk to that Dryad character. The with she when people see that photograph, it is like the Brian Froud pictures, but come true with vitality
Mm-hmm.
and beauty. I mean, it's such an
Yes.
incredible picture.
And
So
yeah,
can't wait.
she one thing that I do want to make, she is the queen. She does the thing, and I don't know if I mentioned this already. I might have mentioned it to you before we started recording about the fact that when she stands up, she looks like a walking log. So it's like a stick people with walking logs and then her head and her antlers. So, and she does walk upright. She does not walk on all fours. So that, when I first saw her come in, I'm like, what is that? And then I noticed the antlers and I'm like, oh, that's the queen. She's very beautiful. She comes in, she's very elegant,
Mm.
but she holds that presence of command with those fae. She is protective of them, and she wants that position of respect too. So she's definitely no pushover, that's for sure. She's a very, very elegant, very special being. So yeah, we could do a whole show on her.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, to find out more about someone like her would be a beautiful thing for people. Very Narnia-esque. For anyone who's ever read the Narnia books, they're real stories.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, and people had to get those stories from somewhere to evolve. It shocks me when I see these buildings with and this is something off the beaten path, gargoyles sitting on them, and I've actually seen them in person and how close they really got to getting them right in appearance. So somebody had to see them in order to draw them. Somebody also has to see the Fey realm to get them that close. It kind of, in the store they've got all of these gnome things with the big nose and the beard type thing, and that is so not them. They don't. I'm trying to, as I had mentioned to you, I'd sent you some things to try to give you an idea of what he looks like in appearance, of what he's evolved to as a human. I'm going to try to get like a sketch pad or something to draw it myself. But I also am going to draw what he looked like when we first met him, which was this blocky headed, with the ears up high, pointed back, and the nose kind of coming over his mouth a little bit, kind of thing, and those eyes that he had. But yeah, and a few little sparse roots. They were supposed to be his hairs, but they were roots kind of standing up. Which reminds me, I'll send you the rock also, and just let me know that you
Yeah,
received
yeah,
it, so I can
we
make
should
sure you
do
receive
that.
it.
Yeah.
But
But this is like beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. It's worth for anyone saying, "Oh, how is that possible that he was like this once and then he's like this?" And it's true because I've been photographed by people who've not liked me, and I look like an ugly old witch. And then I've been photographed by people who love me, and I look really beautiful. So how is that possible? Um, and that's sort of what's going on there with the Bob story there too, I believe.
right, and you once you meet him and get to see his personality, his cheekiness, it's endearing, regardless of the fact that he looked very different. I miss my little under 3 feet tall, little blocky, grumbling headed fellow, that now that he's evolved and he's gone doing bigger and better things, he still taps in. I still feel him come in. I know that I'm protected. Like I said, everything that they've promised me, they have come through tenfold for me. Everything, everything. And they were situations that were almost impossible. And it just that fast.
This is the thing. Yeah. This is the realm just touching to. So thank you so much for bringing a little piece
You're
of
welcome.
to people's
My
hearts.
pleasure.
See you soon, Lynn.
My pleasure.
Much
See you soon. Much love.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.